Now, Wikileaks has exposed close ties between entertainment giant Sony and the U.S. State Department. Leaked emails have revealed mutual efforts on how to counter both Islamic State and Russia. RT's Gana Chikan was at Friday's State Department briefing and asked their representative about the revelations.
Wikileaks has published a massive collection of hacked Sony emails. Its editor-in-chief, Julian Assange, explained why it belongs to the public domain by saying this archive shows the inner workings of an influential multinational corporation. It is newsworthy and at the center of a geopolitical conflict, he said. The trove includes emails between the State Department official Richard Stengel and Sony CEO Michael Linton. Here are excerpts from one of the email. Michael, it was great to see you yesterday. As you could see, we have plenty of challenges in countering ISIL narratives in the Middle East and Russian narratives in Central and Eastern Europe. I'd love to convene a group of media executives who can help us think about better ways to respond to both of these large challenges. Now, I read out the excerpts to the State Department spokeswoman. She seemed unimpressed.
So,
is there a question, or did you just want to do a dramatic reading of his email?
No, really. Is this
no, really? Is
the
there
State
a question?
Department trying to get Sony pictures?
No.
Try to
look,
push
as we
US
said around the
foreign
CVE
policy
summit, as we've said around very openly around the CVE summit, around that we talked to social media organizations, entertainment organizations, other people on the outside that aren't affiliated with the government about our anti-ISIL efforts. I didn't hear Russia even mentioned in that email. I'm not sure how you.
Well, so I'm reading it again. As you could see.
Russia mentioned in this?
Yes, Richard Stengel, right. As you could see, we have plenty of challenges in countering ISIL narratives in the Middle East and Russian narratives in Central and Eastern Europe.
He didn't say they were the
sentence.
same thing, though. They're different challenges. I've talked very publicly about the very high level of Russian propaganda that I'm sure you're familiar with, that is put out by the Russian government to hide what they are doing in Ukraine. That is a very different thing than the anti-ISIL piece of the component here that we've talked about in terms of public messaging. Those are two very different.
So the State Department response to allegations that the government is in talks with entertainment giants to promote U.S. foreign policy could be summarized in two words: so what? But what did seem to surprise Marie Harf was that Russia was in that email along with ISIL. So she struggled to say that those are different challenges in terms of countering the narratives. But Richard Stengel is not the first U.S. official to put Russia and ISIL in one list of challenges.
We're leading the international community in the fight to destroy the terrorist group ISIL and in opposing Russia's aggression against Ukraine.
Exactly how the U.S. government would like entertainment giants to counter narratives from ISIL and Russia is not clear. I asked the State Department spokeswoman, and she said it's up to those companies to decide.
Now, the U.S. Broadcasting Board of Governors lists in its congressional budget request countering Russia and Islamic State as top proposed investments. It is asking for more than $15 million of funding to deal with the perceived Russian threat and almost 3 times less to tackle Islamic State. Now, to discuss this in detail, I'm now joined by Richard Becker from the Anti-War Answer Coalition. Richard, thank you very much for being with us. Now, thanks. The revelations show that U.S. authorities are trying to counter what they call propaganda by using propaganda techniques themselves, basically. What's your take on this?
Well, it's very interesting. This is really a revival, if it ever was allowed to die, of the Cold War, and the Cold War, particularly in the field of culture. There's a famous book about this called The Cultural Cold War, but it appears that the United States, which for decades used reporters, film companies, radio broadcasting, all different forms of communication and culture to promote the Cold War against the Soviet Union. Now they are doing the same, and it's very clear, and it's never stopped, really. As you mentioned, the Broadcasting Board of Governors, which has funded anti-Cuba propaganda by paying journalists and creating radio and TV stations hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. So that notion that is presented by the State Department spokesperson that this isn't something that the U.S. government engages in, or that it's up to the entertainment companies to decide, is completely false. This is a collaborative effort, and it's been going on for decades, and now it's been revived in a big way against Russia as well as against others.
Well, let's take a look at that. In one of the leaked emails, the State Department asks the CEO of Sony to work with them to tackle the narratives from Islamic State and Russia. Now, how are they supposed to do that as an entertainment company?
Well, of course, we can think about the different forms that could take. I mean, again, this shows the utter ridiculousness of the State Department claim that it's just up to the companies. They can produce TV shows, they can produce movies, they can produce all forms of music videos. You know, it just goes on and on and on. Sony is an extremely large corporation, and they're certainly not the only ones who are being approached to do this. But they have many means by which to propagate a narrative, their narrative, which shows them as the bastion of democracy, while whoever they're targeting is portrayed in the worst possible light. And clearly this is continuing to go on.
Now, for me, this calls to mind the typical Russian villain in the movies of the 80s. But if you look at this revelation, it shows us a case of private companies becoming an arm of U.S. interests. Does this surprise you in any way, or do you think that this is a sign of maybe the transformation of American into the private sector, or trying to influence the private sector?
Well, these corporations, the entertainment corporations, are huge capitalist corporations. And they have a government that is very much on their side, along with the other big corporations. And there's nothing really new about this, but after the end of World War II, which, as we know, ended just 70 years ago, this collaboration was intensified exponentially to turn the media, the big business media, newspapers, movies, TV, radio, etc., the big corporations into arms of the government, and in fact they serve that purpose as arms of the government.
Now, one of the revelations from WikiLeaks is that Sony reached out to an organization specializing in research for the U.S. military, specifically for the film The Interview, regarding advice on North Korea and tactics and military tactics. Do you think we'll see this type of cooperation between the movie companies and the U.S. government and military in the future?
Yeah, I think it's been going on for a very long time. I think that most people are hearing about that for the first time. But in reality, the Pentagon and the military, again, really going back to the time of World War II, have collaborated with the film studios, the movie studios, and TV production and other forms of media when they were doing programming that the military, that the Pentagon felt was helpful to the U.S. wars around the world. That's been going on for a very long time, and it's good that at least some of the population is finding out about this.
All right, certainly interesting to hear thoughts. Richard Becker from the Anti-War Answer Coalition. Thanks for being with us here on RT International. Now, we have contacted Sony Pictures, but they've declined to comment, and of course we'll be closely following this story and are even attempting to contact media executives mentioned in this leak as well. Stay with us.